If your team got guaranteed money, tell them call me.
Whoop. Make me say, my. I done been around the world.
Yeah, I was made for this.
Player Performance with J.A. Cavalier.
Welcome to NBA Player Performance, Tuesday, November 12th, 2024, the first Tuesday of the NBA Cup. A tournament last year we didn't really know what to make of. We have some information now, and we have a great conversation for you guys. I'm here with the prop master, Luke Shuey, hat on backwards, ready to dominate, and of course, downtown Junior Brown, down in Costa Rica. Junior, how you feeling this morning?
Good, sir. I had my head down. I was getting some NBA injury updates, trying to stay on top of these plays. Like we were talking about before, injury updates are such a big part of handicapping these days that you better be on your P's and Q's when it comes to that. But no excuses around here. We just get to the money, provide y'all with winners and some good looks, but part of that is having basketball conversations. So whenever you're ready, Sharky, Luke, let's get to this money.
Luke, how you feeling, bro?
I'm ready. You said hat on backwards. I got a collared shirt on. I'm trying to keep it professional. You know, winners only. I love. We can maybe overhype the in-season tournament, but why not? Why not hype it up?
Hat on backwards with a collared shirt. It is an opportunity to dominate. Going first play here. Hawks at Celtics, 7 o'clock TD Garden. Interesting stuff here. No Trae Young in the game. An already young, gutted to a certain degree from previous generations Atlanta roster. We got three officials in this game. We'll go to Junior first. Looking at Boston, team total over 119.5.
Yeah, that has a lot to do with pace, right? The Hawks, they want to get up and down. They want to run a lot. And, you know, if you're going to give the Boston Celtics a lot of opportunity to get shots up, they're going to score points. I have their team total at over 119.5, which is actually lower than their season average. So I'm just asking the best team in the league to have an average game against one of the worst teams in the league. We should be able to get this done. I might be oversimplifying this, but with Trae Young out, playing slower doesn't seem like the recipe because they don't have another natural point guard on that roster. So this could be a Boston blowout. The only thing that kind of sways me or would give me reason for pause, because just because you pick something doesn't mean that you know, every single thing is going to go in your favor. The fact that Boston might blow them out of the water gives me a little bit of pause, but I watch a lot of these, or most of these Boston Atlanta games in Atlanta, and they always seem to be way closer than the spread indicates. So I think Atlanta may be able to hang around, which would help Boston get over that number.
Yeah, obviously not having Trae Young does add a very unique element to this game, and this starting lineup is incredibly young. Going to Luke, Clint Capella, the elder statesman of this young starting lineup, 30 years old, incredibly old within this young group. But you're looking at Clint Capella under in the rebounds market at 11.5.
Yeah, so I'm actually going points under. Just to clarify for the crowd, I'm going to do under 11.5 points. And he is the elder statesman, but because he's so elderly, he's getting less minutes this year, and his numbers are way down. So I think public play could be over on this points total because, you know, they think Trae Young's out. Someone else has to provide. Capella actually plays better with Trae Young in the lineup so that he can play the pick and roll, get some alley-oops. So I actually think that hurts him. And then also the other reason public might take him is he just had 20 points in his last game, but it was against Chicago. We, got done shitting on Chicago's defense yesterday, but I'm going to bring it up again. They're piss poor interior defense. And so look at it. If you look at Capella, he's averaging 10.5 points per game this year. I just don't see how he gets to double digits. When you look at my favorite part of this play, Boston's defense ranked number one, literally number one in holding opposing centers in the points category. There's just no way I think he gets over this line with Trae Young out, going against Al Horford. Other Hawks players are going to get the shots up. I love the under. And then lastly, I do have to throw this out there. He is averaging the least minutes, least shot attempts, least points, literally least in almost every category since 2015 when he was a young stud. I think I'm betting against this old horse today.
I wouldn't disagree. And as you mentioned, without Trae Young, the pick and roll will be potentially non-existent. The starting point guard for Atlanta tonight is 25-year-old Keaton Wallace. Not exactly a household name. Played his college ball at UTSA, the Roadrunners. And my official play in this game, segueing into it, taking the first quarter here at -5.5. And, this is just a great buy low on Boston in the first quarter. This team is a great first quarter team in this generation with Tatum, Brown, and others. And they're coming in here 0-2 ATS in the first quarter in their last two games. Uncharacteristically terrible. Go back to Friday night. They actually came out in their home gym down very early, 16-2 versus Brooklyn, before pushing back a little bit, still losing the first quarter by 4, 28-24. And then Sunday afternoon in Milwaukee, they played a very angry Milwaukee team, and Milwaukee came out and lit them up 40-30 in the first quarter. So now you get a beautiful buy low. The only other time Boston didn't cover back-to-back first quarters this year, they did come back in the third game of that sequence and hammer Charlotte 40-25 early. And they have performed great in this window against these young Southeast teams. Did actually cover a game in the first quarter at Atlanta on Monday, November 4th. And as we said, without Trae Young in the lineup, Atlanta is starting Zachary Risacher or Risache or something. I'm working on my French as we speak. 19 years old. Jalen Johnson, 22. Dyson Daniels, 21. And as I mentioned, Keaton Wallace at the point. This is the NBA Cup. And we always try to figure out who cares about this. Is it the veteran teams, the championship teams, the younger teams? What is it? Well, I went back to last year. Boston was 2-0 ATS in their home games in the in-season cup. And they did cover what we call the trifecta in both. First quarter, first half, and game. So it seems like with Joe Mazzulla at head coach, this group likes to come out and compete in this tournament. And I think they're going to bring that defensive intensity that Luke did mention. Love the first quarter here. A bounce back, a buy low, and a situational motivation spot in the NBA Cup on a Tuesday, 7 o'clock TD Garden, taking the Celtics in the first quarter at -5.5. Junior team total over, and Clint Capella under points for Luke. Segueing to Detroit, 7 o'clock as well. More NBA Cup basketball on this Tuesday. Little Caesars Arena, Heat at Pistons. A lot going on in this game. No Jimmy Butler. A lot of games recently without Jimmy Butler. Actually, 21 last year, and a game that was just played over the weekend. A Heat win in Minnesota. I think a nice little sell high spot there. Go to Junior first, looking at the under 214.5.
Yeah, so Shark, me and you've been working together for a long time, and I never tell you what to do, but I'm going to give you a piece of advice. Never again in your life waste your breath talking about how many games part-time Jimmy plays. Because in his entire 14-year NBA career, he's only played over 80 games or 82 games one time. He's only played over 70 games two times. So part-time Jimmy, like I like to call him, who's one of the greatest playoff players of all time, he doesn't really give a shit about the regular season. So the fact that he's not there to me is kind of a non-factor. I have the under here more so because Detroit is overachieving defensively, and I don't think that that's something that's going to stop. J.B. Bickerstaff is clearly a very good coach who, when he was on the Cleveland Cavaliers, they were an elite defensive team. He's taken that pedigree, brought it to Detroit, and he also is probably smart enough to realize that they don't have shot makers. So if you can't score, you got to at least be able to defend, and they do that at a high level. And when you flip it to the Miami side, their offense is mediocre on a good day. When you take away Jimmy Butler and his part-time presence, and I don't mean to overstate that, I'm probably just kind of trying to annoy J.A. a little bit, who's watching the show and is a Miami season ticket holder. But all jokes aside, with Jimmy not in the lineup and Bam Adebayo playing some of the worst offensive basketball of his career, he's going to have to take more shots, more of an offensive load. And not to say he's incapable, because obviously he's one of the best players in the world. But right now, the way he's playing, not sure that's something that you want. So everything kind of points to the under in this game. And the steam is telling you that because it opened at like 219 and it's been steamed all the way down to 214.5. I would say anyone tailing this play, stick to anything 213 and over, because already 213, you're talking about 52 points or 53 points a quarter. That's pretty low. So anything under that, I would stay away from.
Yeah, as we're looking at it right now, the current line is 214.5. So I think 214.5 is still a good look on the under. And I think a corollary to this, these teams actually did play on Monday, October 28th in Miami, 106.98 under. I think you're going to see a very similar type of game flow tonight. And I'm taking Detroit officially at +2. That is +1.5 now. And this is just a team that I've been buying game after game, and it's going to continue at least for the next month or two, in my opinion. This team is 4-7 straight up, 7-3-1 ATS, competing great against the number every game, and competing against these playoff teams out of the East very well. Detroit is 4-1-1 ATS at home, and this really is JB Bickerstaff connecting with this young roster led by Cade Cunningham. And you look at Miami. Miami is just in a really brutal travel spot here tonight. Fourth game of a 6-game trip. Just played 3 at the Western Conference. Phoenix, Denver, and a win at Minnesota on Sunday. Now you got to go to Detroit, a team you've beaten 7 consecutive times before finishing with 2 at Indiana on Friday and Sunday. This is a dead zone spot in the middle of a long trip coming off a huge win. And this is, as we said, without Jimmy Butler. So I went back to last year, and I saw that Jimmy Butler didn't play 21 times in the regular season last year.
I'm shocked.
Shocking or not shocking, I was watching the Netflix show. He's playing chess with his dad in like the Miami streets and just hanging out. $49 million a year to play chess on the street, or dominoes, whatever it was, both dominoes, poker, chess, all of it. But that all being said, 13-8 ATS in those games, which actually does appear to be impressive. But I went into further detail. 5-0 ATS in the Southeast Division, which is a very, very low-level division. 8-8 otherwise. And even more specifically, 0-1 ATS in the NBA Cup last year without Jimmy. Took a loss and a non-cover against Milwaukee in the playoffs of this Cup. And final point, the only time Jimmy didn't play against Detroit last year, also a Miami non-cover in Detroit, 104-101. Key point on the line, -5.5, moving down now. Bam Adebayo hit a game-winning 3 in that game. Detroit will want this. This is one of those psychological prototypes you want to buy in the NBA Cup. They know they're not going to win the finals in June. This is where these teams will show up with massive Game 7 energy. I think they get the outright win tonight. And we're throwing it to Luke for some comments. I mentioned Cade Cunningham. I love his game. He's got a great body for a point guard. But you think he goes under in his rebounds tonight at 6.5?
I do. It's really just a lean of mine, and I would just like to compliment both your plays. I'm tailing both of those. I love the under. I love Detroit for many of the reasons you listed, and this has nothing to do with correlation to your picks, but Cade Cunningham's rebound total is just too high because he's averaging 7.3 rebounds per game this year. It's just like light years ahead of where he was at. Last year, he was at 4.3 rebounds per game. Analytics continually, game after game, show me that he's projected for about 5.5. So we're getting a full rebound value. I love it. His 4-year career, he's sitting at 5.2 rebounds per game. The line's just elevated. I think it's too high, and so it's a value spot for me as a lean. And the only other place I'd go here is possibly Jalen Duren's overs on his stats. He's actually a buy low spot this year. All of his numbers are down across the board. He has a questionable status with an ankle injury, so if you go that route, do it lightly. But he's a buy low. I like Cade Cunningham's rebound under as my 2 leans here.
Sharp stuff from the prop master, as always. Continuing the conversation, more sharp plays. An official from me taking the Hornets on the road tonight in Orlando at +8.5. And this is a very similar conversation to the take on Detroit. Charlotte is a well-coached young team showing significant upside. 4-6 straight up, 7-3 ATS. And it really seems like this group is connecting with this new coach, Charles Lee. This guy Lee, Bucknell product, played overseas, but in his coaching career, won the title as an assistant with the Bucks in 2021 and won the title last year with the Celtics. This guy has pedigree of championship ball, and I think you're seeing stylistically Charlotte really molding to how he wants them to play. They've slowed down their pace, and they've picked up their defense from what was an absolute disaster last year. 22nd pace, 15th defensive rating, holding their opponents to 104.8 points per game last 5. And those opponents were Boston, Minnesota, Detroit, Indy, and Philly. So Charlotte is competing great on the defensive end. And this is a great spot to sell Orlando. Orlando's playing without Paolo Banchero. They have not played well without this guy. He's by far their best player. They're 2-4 ATS without Paolo. And they're actually coming in here 2-0 ATS last two. So you get a nice sell high spot. And if you really look at what happened in those previous two games, complete fool's gold. They played New Orleans and blew out New Orleans, who's missing basically their entire roster. And then they blew out Washington. And we talked about Washington yesterday. Washington is 0-7 ATS versus all opponents not named Atlanta, losing games by 20 points per game. So these two recent covers by Orlando, highly unimpressive. And final point on this game, division rivals played 4 times last year. Orlando won the first 3 by margin. Charlotte did get them on April 5th in the most recent matchup. A heavy road line for Orlando. This is highly, highly short, opening at 6.5. I have Charlotte to win this game by 3 points tonight. Junior, any comments on this game?
Yeah, I'll just touch on some of the stuff you said about Charlotte because I really like watching their team. A lot of people, I remember last year, you and me did a show together, and I don't remember if you remember this comment, but one of the guys on the show had made the comment with like, man, this LaMelo guy needs to stop chucking all these threes. And I was like, actually, if you just look at threes per game and shooting average, LaMelo's averages are literally identical to Dame Lillard. Now, am I comparing LaMelo to Dame Lillard? No, I'm not an idiot. But what I'm saying is, if your volume and percentage are the same as one of the best shooters in the league, you actually should be shooting a lot of threes. So LaMelo is actually making the most threes in the league right now. His shot selection can still improve. So can the turnovers. But again, that's one of those byproducts of, the new coach has taken the shackles that Steve Clifford had on LaMelo. LaMelo's 5th in the league in scoring right now. And yeah, he's 4th in turnovers. But again, when you have a high usage rating, you're going to be high in turnovers. Nikola Jokic, for example, is 5th in turnovers right behind him. So I think he is adjusting well. And they've got other, like Brandon Miller is one of the best young players in the league as well. So when you add up all these young players, good energy, good new coaching, I think you're in a spot where you can still buy low on Charlotte because the market and the betting public has not caught up to the fact that this, again, they're only going to win like 30-something games. Let's not be hyperbolic, but we're just saying that if you're looking for buy low spots, you're looking for outright dogs to win, Charlotte is good value at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, I could make an argument that Charlotte should be actually favored in this game. I think the coaching advantage is there. I really like this guy, Charles Lee. And truthfully, as you said, LaMelo Ball playing really at a high level. And I think he's showing maturity that we have not seen in previous seasons. And I think this overall Charlotte group does have a lot more maturity than the general public would ever know because, of course, this team is not covered in the national media really at all. So people are really unaware of what's going on in Charlotte. This is a really great buy team. Luke, any comments on this game, or should we keep it moving?
I don't got much for the crowd on this one. I would go straight numbers, and it's I guess I'll just quick talk through it. So Wendell Carter Jr. is out for the Magic due to injury. Who's been playing in his spot? I'll probably absolutely butcher this, but it's Goga Bitadze. The guy's actually pretty efficient statistically, but my analytics continue to show that his numbers are too high. His projections are too high. So his rebound total is set at 9.5. If I was going to lean somewhere, I'd go under. The analytics say he shouldn't get more than 7.5, although he has gotten 10.5 per game over his 4 starts. So I don't know if the numbers are just off on this because he's getting so much more playing time, or if there's just a lot of value there. Thus, my lean is the under 9.5 boards, but it's not a full play. I don't fully trust it. So that's what I got for you guys.
Yeah, intelligent commentary as always. 7:30, first national game of this Emirates NBA Cup. I just saw the sponsorship. Wow, I'm blown away. But we're going to Philly, and the Knicks are traveling to the Wells Fargo Center. This should be a great ball game tonight. You get 2 division rivals. You get a rematch of the playoffs last year where the Knicks did win in 6 in Philadelphia the last time these teams met in the spring. Joel Embiid's first game of the year. First game playing with Paul George. A lot of moving parts. This arena will be electric tonight. I will have the game on, and Luke has an official on Paul George over 17.5 points.
I do. I love this play. I think people overhype the stars playing in this game. And yes, will Embiid go off? He certainly could. I personally don't care. I don't think that's where the value is here. I think Embiid being on the floor does free up things for Paul George offensively, who hasn't done well so far in a Sixers uniform in his few games. He's actually averaging just 14.3 points per game so far. What does Vegas do? They tell us the story here. Odds makers put the line at 17.5. That's 3.2 points per game above his average. They're telling you he's going to get better shot opportunities, better quality looks attacking the rim. And I think it does have to do with Embiid playing a role here and Paul George finally making a statement game in a Sixers uni. I think this is the opportunity to do so. And the only other point here is his three-point shooting has been ass. He's hitting 16% from deep. That's way below his historic numbers, buy low spot, as we like to say. And then, again, this is another one similar to Capella, but reversed. And so his numbers are down. He hasn't averaged below 21 points since 2015. So he's going to get his numbers. He's going to put points up. I love him to do it tonight at home against the Knicks. PG over 17.5. Book it.
Yeah, I mean, this kind of reminds me of the conversation we had yesterday about Victor Wembanyama. Of course, Wemby went off last night for one of the best games of his career. We'll let that be what it is. But if you look at what Paul George is doing here, it is a very similar type of zigzag. And you go back to the previous game played on Sunday against Charlotte, overtime win by 2. He really couldn't shoot the ball, as you said, particularly from 3, 1 for 9 from the 3-point line. And for those of you guys who have followed Paul George in his career, crazy to think he's 34 years old right now. I remember when he was a young player for the Pacers, training with LeBron in the offseason, and LeBron really took him under his wing. And of course, he's moved around the league considerably. But this guy is heady. He's emotional. He has lows, and he's one of those players where he kind of has to go down to come up. Oftentimes, he has to play a bad game or two to get himself going almost. And then he gets angry at himself. He locks in. And I think it really does correlate to that. And the last time he had a really noteworthy poor shooting game, it was November 4th against Phoenix. He did shoot 1 for 7 from the 3-point line for only 15 points. And he came back the following game and was actually lights out from the field, 7 for 9, 78%, and did have 18 points. Sharp take from Luke always. Junior, this is going to be a hell of a game tonight. Any thoughts on it?
Not really. I just all I would say is that I'd back Luke's play. I'm actually considering getting on it after hearing his argument because at the end of the day, I think people have a false narrative of Paul George because of the way things ended in LA. He was an all-star last year. You're still talking about one of the 25 to 30 best players in the entire league, and he's coming off a super tough injury for a basketball player in a sport that's very stop-start. He had a hyperextended knee. If you guys have seen the picture that's all over online where they call it the zestiest looking injury of all time, which it was, it looked terrible. It looked like he would have been out for longer. So the fact that he's come in sooner than expected, I wouldn't overreact to Paul George's slow start in the sense that he's still one of the legit heat check players in this league that could easily drop 35 to 40 on any given night. Because he's an efficient shooter and who's 6'8" with handles. So let's not write the Paul George obituary just yet. He's gonna come good. He's gonna be a 20+ point per game scorer, in my opinion, this season.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree. I'm actually very excited to see how this team comes together. Of course, unfortunate Tyrese Maxey is out for an extended period of time. The injuries in this league are immense yet again, and it's unfortunate to see. But to see Paul George play with Joel Embiid, it will be a great product. This will be a hell of a game. National 7:30. Luke over Paul George, 17.5 points. Keeping it moving here. 8 o'clock, Fiserv Forum in Milwaukee. A very surprising matchup here tonight. Toronto's 2-9. Not surprising. Milwaukee's 2-8. Very surprising. And I think you're going to find a buy low ATS here potentially for Milwaukee tonight. 3-7 ATS off yet another loss over the weekend. Go up big in the game against Boston, as we said. 40 points in the first quarter, only to give it back and lose 113 to 107. But brutal spot for Toronto here, coming off of a Western tour at Denver, Sac, Clippers, Lakers, finishing their road trip at an angry Milwaukee team. And Damian Lillard is not playing tonight due to a concussion. Yet another injury to a principal player in contemporary basketball. But if that's going to do anything, it's going to facilitate space for Giannis to dominate. And I think we love Giannis in the over market tonight, probably all across it. PRA, points, all of it. Luke, of course, the prop master. Luke, enlighten us. What's going on?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think, I let you guys do the picking for the spreads and the lines, but I can't help but be intrigued by Milwaukee here. It feels like they're asking people to almost take the Raptors because it's an ugly spot for them. Dame is out. But you talked about it. I think Giannis takes over. How can he not? His team's reeling. His time in Milwaukee might be reeling. And honestly, Dame being out, if you've watched Milwaukee's basketball closely, he's horrible defensively. He has been statistically for many years. And so it was a major drop off from Drew Holiday to Dame on the court defensively. I think the Milwaukee roster could compete a little bit more physically on that end of the court, which will also help things. But I'm the prop guy. If anything, it's hammer Giannis's overs here. They're high. They're listed higher than they normally are because he's going to be the stat getter. What are his points? I think it was like 33 and a half points. He might get it at 34. He's probably going to put up 40 plus. He just did against Boston. I see no reason to not take Antetokounmpo's overs in any category you can find. That's where I'd be in this game.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree. I mean, this roster obviously is so centered on Giannis and Lillard shooting the ball. A lot of role players. I mean, a lot of these guys did win a championship a few years ago, so these guys know how to play ball. But they're definitely not high usage rate guys. So Giannis should have the ball in his hands the entire game. And I think Giannis, from a mental makeup standpoint, pretty well noted. Grew up on the streets of Greece with 4 or 5 brothers. He doesn't take this for granted, and this has to piss him off more than any other superstar probably would. 2-8. This is a disgrace. He's going to take it in his hands tonight. He's going to go off. I think Milwaukee wins the game. I'm not sure if they cover the spread. I think this could be tighter than people think. The line is kind of short historically for these teams. But, Junior, any thoughts on this game?
Yeah, I'm looking at the lineup data, right? I'm trying to figure out what their starting lineup will be. It looks like it'll probably be DeLon Wright starting for Dame, although he doesn't really usually play a lot of minutes. And it's weird, right? Because you see these on-off numbers, and DeLon Wright. So with DeLon Wright in the lineup, which is their this is their second most used non-Dame lineup. They're a plus 24.5 net, and it's basically exactly what you said. Their defense is just much better. So there's a world where Milwaukee actually wins this game pretty comfortably because even without Dame, they're the much better team, and you're actually in a buy low spot.
Yeah, I mean, again, against the spread, it's a funky game to cap against the spread because the last 2 times these teams played last year, Giannis didn't play in either of them. So we don't really have like any sort of specific matchup data unless we go all the way back to November 1st last year, which was actually a Toronto home win against Milwaukee, 130-111. So you do get a theoretical revenge for Giannis. He hasn't beaten Toronto since the 2022 season, or 2023 season, excuse me. So I think he's gonna show up here. And as I said, really a terrible spot for Toronto at the back end of this trip. And it's the NBA Cup. There's a ton of motivation on Milwaukee tonight. I think Milwaukee probably gets there in some capacity. We don't really drop money line parlays. At least I don't. I know Junior likes them, and J.A. absolutely loves them. I think that Milwaukee's a nice component for a money line parlay tonight. I do not see them dropping this game. So that's the conversation on this game. We love Giannis over. I think Milwaukee probably gets there on the money line. 9 o'clock in Salt Lake City. Going to the Western Conference. Very interesting game here. Funny 8-2 straight up Phoenix versus 2-7 straight up Utah. Phoenix has been hot. Mike Budenholzer, first campaign, a great regular season coach. And Utah has been terrible. Junior has taken note. Junior, an official. Phoenix ATS minus 3.5. That is 4 or 4.5 now.
Yeah, I mean, let me just start with the fact that Utah is complete ass. So that's where my handicap starts. I understand that Kevin Durant is out, but you got to look at it from value, value over replacement. Now, Kevin Durant's one of the 10 to 15 best players in the league, so his hole is going to be felt on both the offense and defensive side. There's no doubt about it. But again, you're talking about playing against one of the worst rosters in the league, and you've got 2 guys on this Phoenix roster that can if there's one thing that Bradley Beal and Devin Booker are not going to have a problem doing is making up for the shot volume that you're missing with Kevin Durant. So the real question is, can this team continue to perform defensively the way they have to start the season? And I think they can, for the simple fact that it's something that they've been preaching, and it's not like their defense is amazing. Let's not get crazy, right? They're 14th in the league in defense, but the effort is there. If you watch their games, there is a concerted effort to try and play defense and not just be the team that relies on the fact that they have three elite scorers. And it's working for them, right? Even their loss against the Sacramento Kings, yes, they did end up losing by margin. But at the end of the day, at the end of regulation, they had only given up 111 points. So this is a team that I think can hold Utah to somewhere in between 102 to 106. Which means for me they're going to cover because they're going to score upwards of 112 plus. So I didn't want to throw out too many numbers there because I have a million numbers as to why I think this Phoenix team can really hold Utah down, but I don't want to bore you guys to death. Just trust me when I say that this number, you're getting the much, much better team at a very short number.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're going a good direction with the under as well. I think we're probably going to see an under tonight. And this Utah team has struggled to score the ball, which is kind of a surprise given their mold of basketball is very wide open and it's very shooter-oriented. But if you actually go back through the last few matchups, these were last year, but it does apply numerically. They really clustered significant overs in the last three games. 131, 128 in Utah, 140, 137 in Utah, albeit two overtimes. And most recently, February 8th, 129, 115 Phoenix in Phoenix. Crucial point on that game, Phoenix just shot lights out of the gym. 59.1% from the field without Devin Booker. So you see those high totals, and you see the lines that those totals were correlated to. 237.5, 238.5, 239.5. This opened at 230, and it's gotten steamed down significantly. I'm not officially on this. I might get there throughout the afternoon. I think the under is a very good look. And as you mentioned, Junior, Phoenix playing defense, they might hold Utah to 105 or under here. So I think the under is a great look. Junior officially on -3.5. Luke, any thoughts about this one?
I don't have much for the prop game here, and the reason is kind of Durant's injury. I know that there's sometimes spots to take advantage of when big guys are out. I don't see anything particular here. The analytics like a lot of the unders on the Suns players, which just doesn't jive with what you guys are saying and what I'm feeling. You know, I mean, Beal and Booker are going to get shots up. So I just don't feel comfortable taking what the numbers tell me to take here. So to be honest, I'm staying away. I don't have a play here. If I was, I'd follow numbers, but it's really uncomfortable taking the Suns unders here. Maybe a blowout, and they don't get to their props, but I'm going no play on this. I'm staying away.
Yeah. Under the best look for me, Junior officially on Phoenix and keeping it moving. Second national game of the night, TNT, 10 o'clock Chase Center, San Francisco. Mavericks visiting the Warriors. Another electric game from any sort of competitive narrative standpoint. Klay Thompson returns to Golden State. I will have it on, and I will be rooting for points scored in the game as I am on over 231 overnight, 234.5 now. And you really look at what's going on this season with these teams. The Warriors are scoring the ball with elite efficiency. 7-3 versus the over, scoring 125.7 points per game when Steph Curry is playing. They're fourth in the league in points, seventh in pace, top 10 field goal and three-point percentage, and fourth offensive rating. And I think you get a really nice buy low on Dallas versus the total. Dallas started 3-6 versus the over. They are 1-0 in their last one, scoring 119.8 points per game last four. They've found their offensive flow with Klay obviously playing alongside Kyrie Irving and Luka Doncic for the first time. And if you really think about the psychology of this matchup, Klay Thompson is going to want to come in here and show out at the highest level. And that connects with the locker room too. Dallas will be playing an extremely efficient basketball game. And I think Golden State will match that with their style of ball this year. High pace, great field goal percentage. And you get a great statistical buy low within this matchup between these teams. 4 games last year, 3 consecutive unders coming into tonight's game: 109.99, 104 100, 108 106. All way lower than the total. And books like the under in the most recent matchup on April 5th, 223.5 line. This opened at 232. It does suggest 241 points on the average. This is the type of game you want to bet a sharp over. And also, just from a standpoint of watching the game and rooting for a good game, the over is a very agreeable bet in this game. Luke, any thoughts on this game?
Yeah, as you're talking and breaking it down, I honestly think I just talked myself into a play. And for good reason. I think it kind of plays into the storyline. It's not necessarily a contrarian play, but I like Kyrie Irving's assist line and to go over in this one. So his line is at 4.5 on the books I'm seeing. He's averaging 4.8 on the year, so above that number. His splits work in our favor. He's averaging 5 assists in road games, 5.6 assists versus the Western Conference. And then lastly, you said it. I mean, Klay Thompson's going to get shots up. The most likely players to dish him the ball are obviously Irving and Doncic. I think Kyrie's very unselfish in a spot like this and gives Klay the ball as much as he possibly can. So give me Kyrie Irving over 4.5 assists. I'm gonna make that a free play for everybody here.
Yeah, I love it, and I think it's gonna feed into that narrative of Klay Thompson getting a lot of points. Kyrie will be the facilitator there. So an official from Luke, the prop master, over 4.5 assists for Kyrie Irving. Junior rejoining us from the abyss. And we're going to the final game on the card here. Minnesota at Portland, 10 o'clock Moda Center. A lot of moving parts in this game. This is another one of those games I think is pretty difficult to handicap against the spread. I definitely don't see Minnesota losing this game. And I think this is a nice component for that money line parlay I was describing with the Milwaukee side. I think if you pair Milwaukee and Minnesota tonight, you get a really nice price on a two-way parlay on the money line. I think I'm hearing whispers of J.A. Cavalier saying, Shark, what a great play that is. And I know that Junior's probably salivating too as one who loves moneyline parlays. But official play, or not, maybe not official play, but definitely a really sharp look. Going to the prop master. Anthony Edwards coming off an absolutely abysmal performance on Sunday. This is where he will bounce back. Luke, thoughts?
Yeah, so I think this is my lean. It's not an official play. I got to go Edwards for a bounce back opportunity here. I mean, he was 8 of 24 against the Heat. That is an ugly shooting performance. And we talked about this off air. Edwards is shooting a ridiculously high percentage of three-pointers. Is he hitting them? Yes. I mean, he's shooting kind of lights out. What is he on the year? I have him at 46%. He's shooting 12 threes per game. That is astronomically above what he's been throughout his career. I just don't see that continuing. I think people will get in his ear and say, Anthony, like, Ant-Man, attack the rim. He's going to be a better player this season by kind of splitting things, both 3-point and 2-point land. And I just think he's going to be aggressive tonight. I don't see a reason for him to be under 30 points. So I would lean to his point total over. And then, Sharky, I'm surprised that you haven't given me shit yet for what we saw in the comments last night. It's an official, what did you call it? Pop star prop? Or what was it?
Well, we want to start giving a shout to the top comments in the chat. We really encourage you guys. We appreciate you guys viewing the show at the highest level. Drop your comments. We will feature one of the top comments every day going forward. And we want to give a shout to our guy, I believe, JD, calling Luke, Nick Jonas, pop star. And I said, Jonas Brothers pop star picks. I think you got it a little bit. I didn't see it totally, but our guy JD did. We appreciate the comment, guys. Tell us what you think about the show, the picks, your picks. I will interact with you. Junior, get in there and fire off some comments, and Luke will comment back as well and really get the conversation going here. And speaking of the conversation, Junior looking at the under here at 221. Junior, what's going on here?
Yeah, I mean, I just think numerically, we're going to see that this Minnesota team is going to start to settle back into their identity. Not to say that they're far off it so far. They're averaging about 98. Actually, let me just say this in another way. Of the teams that have played 10 games, Minnesota has the fewest amount of possessions in the league. They're a team that plays relatively slow-paced basketball. They're at 98.5 possessions this season. Last season, they were at 97, and it was one of the most successful seasons. I think the second most wins in their franchise history. So there's no reason to go away from what works. They're a team that does not get out in transition a lot. And again, Shark already knows what I'm going to say because they don't have a point guard. And I'm not trying to disrespect Mike Conley. Just go look at the numbers. He's playing for fewer minutes now than he did as a rookie. He's like 37 years old. That's not their primary point guard, right? So this is a team without a point guard. So their success is going to be in the efficiency with which they score in the half court. And I think that a slower pace favors them because their defense is also elite. And I think that that's what you're going to see here tonight. They have no reason to pick up the pace in this specific matchup against a Portland team that can only score one way, and that's to get up and down. Of Portland's top 4 field goal attempts by any player, 3 of those guys shoot under 40%. Their offense is absolutely horrendous. So it is in Minnesota's best interest to keep this game at their pace, which leads me to the under.
Yeah. I mean, I could definitely see it getting to the under. I could. I think that this is not where Portland performs well at all. You know, we talked about Atlanta. Obviously, Atlanta's in an interesting spot tonight, but we talked about, I forget who it was. Totally irrelevant. One of these teams was cleaning up. Oh, Washington had only beaten Atlanta twice and otherwise was getting their ass kicked by the rest of the league. That's actually what Portland is doing. Portland is just making all their money this year off of New Orleans. Portland's 3-0 ATS against New Orleans and 2-6 against everybody else. And it's going to inevitably be a bounce back for Minnesota tonight. You know, you guys said it. I'll just say, you know, this is where Edwards, some coach needs to get in this guy's ear and say, listen, bro, you're not Steph Curry. And not only that, it's a lazy brand of basketball when you're shooting sometimes. A couple games this year, he shot 70% of his shots from the three-point line. It's like he's not even trying to get inside the paint. Just really lackadaisical. And for a guy that's never won an NBA championship and is very young, I really love this guy's competitive makeup. I like the trash talk. People say he's like a contemporary Jordan type of personality, whatever. I think somebody needs to get in his head and say, listen, bro, reel it back in. Discipline wins in this game. You've won nothing. You know, shut your mouth and get in the paint and dominate, because some of these efforts have been really abysmal. So I think intelligent look on the under. I think there's a bounce back coming. I like Edwards, and I do think Minnesota wins the game. I do not see them losing this game tonight. So a lot of plays there, a lot of thoughts. And that is 8 games, NBA Cup, 42 fast minutes, NBA player performance on this Tuesday. My 4 top plays: Charlotte plus 8.5, Boston in the first quarter minus 5.5, Detroit plus 2, and Dallas Golden State over 231, 234.5. Now, Junior on the Detroit Miami under. Luke on Paul George over 13 points. Significant lean to Giannis overs and Edwards overs. Junior also on Phoenix, ATS minus 3.5, under 221 in Minnesota, Portland. And Luke the prop master, under points, Clint Capella. A fast show, an intelligent show. We appreciate you guys immensely. As we said just before, drop likes. It helps to build the show within the algorithm. Thumbs up. It is an opportunity to dominate. Drop your comments. We will interact with you. Let's cash tickets. Let's dominate this card. For J.A. Cavalier, for Junior Brown, for Coach Rick, out in the middle of nowhere, coaching people right now, I'm sure, and the prop master, Luke Shuey. We appreciate you guys. Have a great day. Let's cash these tickets, and let's dominate.